Good afternoon, good evening, and good day. Good morning to those of you on the West Coast. And let's see what we've got going on today. For that. All right. So the next thing I want to do is see if you guys can hear me. So let's do that. So there's the video, and then let's go on over to. All right, the audio's working. Now we need to check his chat. But while we wait on that, let me fix the title because that's wrong. I've messed it up everywhere today. That should be the 17th. There we go. Oh, not an inner there. There we go. Now, switch views to presentation view. I think we should move this one up and that one. Eh, that's fine where it is. That way I stop getting confused as to whether or not there's somebody's in the waiting area when I glance over there and see that. So this one was sent over to us by Marcus, and let's take a look and see what it was because I found it when I was sending the invites out. So it says vandals have cut cables of newly installed EV charging stations in Sumner. So they were installed on the 7th at Old Cannery Furniture Warehouse, and just days later the cables were cut. Garbage humans. There's not that much copper in them to be stealing, and some of the cheaper ones use aluminum, so it's even worse. The damages are substantial, and the rewards for the thievery are minimal. Uh, Longtime business owner and CEO of the Old Cannery said it's the second time the charging cords have been cut in the span of a few months. I'd get some cameras. See, this is the kind of stuff there where you should be able to put up a small sign that says "Warning: Cable's electrified," and then they just be electrified whenever somebody goes slicing through. Uh, let's see. They said that the charging station is part of the ongoing efforts to provide needed charging and utility infrastructure. But after all the buzz, just days, they were left in shock. That's sad. I think as we see less combustion cars on the road, we may see less of these incidences because people will realize that. I mean, they already know it's a jerk move, but they'll realize it's the same reason they're not running around stealing gas pumps. I mean, the whole units, it happens, but not all that frequently. All right, so let's close the other copy of this article and pull up our notebook and get started. The notebook's on the wrong screen, of course, just because. Why not? All right, click here, move this over here. I wonder if this smart screen organization algorithm is assuming that you only have one monitor because Apple is big on that one monitor deal. But I'm not. And they really ought to have some solutions for. I'm a little more tech savvy than the average bear. Like I keep saying, the reason I went to them in the first place was 35 watts to get like 95% of the performance of my 800-watt PC. So, and it fits through the door in my office, unlike my machine. Well, that's my machine too, but unlike the PC. So now make sure this is the active window, and then we'll click on this link. So this one's coming from Electric. Volkswagen cancels plans to build the ID3 at their main plant because every euro counts. So what's happening here is they were going to build the ID3 at the main plant, but now they're just going to build it at their EV plant because of the costs that would be involved in having more than one facility to do this. Volkswagen's been rolling back on their EVs for a couple months now, and not just their EVs, their overall cars as well. They're looking to build less of them than they had initially told investors, and they're gonna not just like make the mistake of trying to save their way into profitability, but rather they want to make more profit on fewer cars. So they're gonna cut out the extra expenses. They're gonna raise the prices. They're gonna do what they can to not chase volume. They're gonna chase the profits, and we'll see if it works for them. We'll see if it doesn't. So it's not just like we see with the legacy narrative over here about EVs aren't working, because it's true that yes, it is harder for legacies to sell EVs here because most of their products aren't compelling, and then you've also got the matter that their dealers don't want to sell them for several reasons. Not all of them, but on average, on a whole, and then you get all these puff piece shocker stories about EVs aren't going to work, and did you see they had this problem in the cold, and all this other just blown way out of proportion stories that we're seeing where they're trying to push that for some reason they think that EVs don't work, and the reason is most likely that a lot of their advertisers are energy companies. They sell oil, they sell coal, they sell methane, and well, if you can do it at home, you don't need their product because there's not a well actually there's a methane spigot, but there's no there's no coal and gas spigot at your house. All right, so let's move on to the next one because I don't want to participate in the doom and gloom, and it's not exactly. I mean, they're still making the EVs. They haven't reduced their target or anything like that. So let's go over to. I should have put these things in some kind of order. So the Apple engineer who was playing video games on his phone as he was going past uh, the gore, the hash marks on the road saying that hey, you're not in the road anymore, you're in the shoulder or worse. Uh, Weeks before, or weeks the week before his crash, they had removed the collision, not really collision impact. What do they call that thing? There's a crash barrier that had been removed because a human pilot had run into it in a legacy car the week before and crushed it, and so CalDOT didn't replace it yet or straighten it back out into its normal form. And the engineer, for whatever reason, was playing video games on his phone, and autopilot drove him into the concrete wall. And this is the same guy who said to his friends and family, "Oh yeah, it does really bad right here." So I don't know. I mean, in the areas where my car, when it was trying to do this, when it was trying to jump off of bridges, you didn't see me with any sort of distraction when I was on the bridges, except in the cases where there's a pedestrian, uh, darting out into traffic or something. And even then, I was still cognizant that the car had a habit of trying to jump off of the overpass at these specific overpasses. So I don't understand how you make those comments to your family and then still aren't paying attention to it. And yes, there was the argument, and I didn't see any proof of this that maybe there was an update and it wasn't doing it anymore. That's not good enough for me. In the places where the car messes up, I'm kind of keeping an eye on it for several versions to make sure that it's not uh, gonna try and do something foolish. And just like we said with the guy who was drinking and trying to operate the car, that's you can't operate a cell phone on a game. It's not even like you dial the number for like half a second or whatever, which you're not supposed to do. To play a game on the phone, you have to kind of get engrossed in it. And I'm not saying he deserved this, but I am saying that what's coming up here is they're going to try a new angle with this. All the other previous suits against Tesla, against Autopilot in a crash, have been either the heirs or the person who did it trying to push the liability back on Tesla, and every time they were doing something where they should not have been doing it. What the lawyers here think is different is that we had that recall, that software update that we had a couple weeks ago, where the warnings about keeping your hands on the wheel, keeping your eyes on the road, had been moved further up into the line of sight on the new cars with the landscape screens, and on the cars with two screens, it was also moved up further into the second screen where the speedometer usually lives. And so they figure that that means that Tesla knew something was wrong, even though NHTSA said they found nothing wrong, and they would just prefer stronger reminders that these people need to be paying attention. And that's also when we found that the not just notifications, but the cars equipped with cameras, they got a little more aggressive in checking whether or not you were paying attention. And again, that was an NHTSA request. Tesla said they disagree, but they complied. And then the other little bit of this is they tried to point out how some Tesla executives were caught in emails during discovery saying that they were not using the system correctly. That they would get lulled into a sense of security and decide they wanted to check emails. Or I don't know if this one was stated or not, but it's one that people bring up all the time about how when Elon is doing demonstrations on or he's on X all the time now, but at the time when he was doing demonstrations, a couple times he would start talking with his hands, and they point that out as him not using it correctly. And they tried to say that that is going to give them something different in these cases, and I don't see that succeeding. It's not like Tesla themselves or an executive like Musk or somebody like Franz got up and said, "Hey, yeah, these warnings are just for show. You don't have to do that," or these warnings are. And then people point out the 2016 demo drive that was it very clearly said it was pre-release software. So that's not to say it's the same thing as the betas that people are driving today, as far as auto steer beta, autopilot, um, navigate on autopilot, and FSD beta. The company is very clear that they want you to follow the correct procedures, whether they do or don't do themselves in videos or in emails. So I don't see that this new angle is going to work any better for this team than the previous legal teams. And it's just another reason for me to remind you guys, hey, keep your hands on the wheel, pay attention to what's going on, and to discourage you from using anything that goes on the steering wheel to make it so you don't have to hold the wheel. Those sometimes work still, but depending on what you've done, Tesla has actually got a routine in the car that actually checks to see if it's a static weight, and eventually they'll put you in timeout. And I don't really understand how timeout's better than. I guess I can see it, but excuse me, the way that they always say, hey, this is better to drive with autopilot on than to not, and then to put you in timeout, and now you're less safe. But at the same time, you're also paying attention so that this doesn't happen. So let's move on to something else. I would say something more fun, but I don't know what I've got next. Oh, this is more um, spirited. I don't know about fun. The new Porsche Taycan is called the Taycan Turbo GT. It's the most powerful production Porsche of all time, starting at just starting at $232,000. It gets up to 1092 horsepower. That is more than the Plaid, that's for sure. At 1020, it's a 0 to 60 time as low as 2.1 seconds. So that's actually um, slower than the Plaid. The thing here is that Porsche typically will understate their numbers, so this could either equal or surpass the Plaid in launches. But Porsche, really, their thing isn't drag strips. They like circuits. And so let's take a look at this. Top speed of 190 horsepower. Stock, okay. Record class Nuremberg lap time of 7 minutes, 7 seconds, 0.55, which is 18 seconds faster than the Plaid. And delivery start this summer. It's kind of a cool purple car right there. All right, so the interior's getting there for me. It's still got that stupid analog clock, but it's getting better for me. All right. Not that I'm going to spend 232 grand on a car anytime soon. Oh, they got a little wing on it, too. All right. More info. That's probably got music in it. Let's see. Yep, it's got music in it. So, no. Well, let's see if it says anything that we can read. Look at closed captioning. That's such a hit or miss with X. Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. 2.5 times more expensive and slightly less performance than the S5, but it beat it around the ring. Say nothing about the inferior software range and range anxiety. From what I heard, it has no rear seat. At least the one they tested to get those lap times. Oh, well, that's well. If it had no rear seat, then that's a different Taycan than what they've been selling, and you can probably delete the two rear doors at that point as well. And if they don't do that, then it wasn't stock. Stock means if you're a manufacturer and you're advertising that you did a feat with a stock car, it needs to be as it rolled out from the factory. Like, maybe you can change the tires. Maybe. Okay, so next, let's go to. All right, so when the Cybertruck Foundation series came out, there were some stipulations attached, and this particular individual, they didn't follow the procedure, which is that you have to ask Tesla, or first tell Tesla you intend to sell your car, give them a chance to buy it back, and then see what they offer. And then, if you don't like their offer, you tell them that, and then you wait further for them to give you permission to resell the car. And there have been a couple people who've done this properly, and Tesla's kind of said, "Good job on them on their or congratulations on their sales rather." But for those folks who decided they would just try and scalp these vehicles, they've got another thing coming. This particular individual had multiple Cybertruck reservations. They listed, I don't know if it was the actual truck or a reservation that was in process, like it had a VIN number and everything. Listed it all over the place, put his VIN number on there to prove that he had it, and then that makes it super easy for Tesla to see who was registered to. And they canceled all his future reservations and gave back his $100 per truck and warned him that if he puts any more in, they will keep the money and use them as donations, basically. And then the internet was in uproar over this. But I don't understand why people get so mad at Tesla for this when it's not a new thing in the industry. Chevrolet has done it. Ford has done it several times, and Ferrari is well known for this. So, FAFO, as I like to say, FAFO. So if you were to curse like an old man, you might say, "Freak around and find out." All right, next up uh, is talk about Rivian. So Rivian's latest software update, 2024.07.02, tells R1 owners to look out for Tesla Supercharger access. Where will you head first when you're with your Rivian when it gains Tesla Supercharger access? That's coming from Teslarati. There were a number of other things in this update, but that was the most interesting, anticipated. And a couple of our friends have found out that they could use the Ford adapter or third-party adapter. Their Rivians might identify as Fords in the Tesla app, and they were able to charge because, as we said, you needed the software update first before this would work, and that is the software update. So next, we should expect to see a couple of folks charging officially as Rivians with the Rivian adapter, which doesn't appear to look any different than the Ford adapter. And this thing will continue on. And that was what I said earlier when I was suspecting that Rivian might beat GM to the punch for any number of reasons, and we'll see how that goes. But so far, the software is there, and unofficially, you've got a couple of Rivians charging on the Supercharger network. Welcome aboard. And then we've got. Oh, I didn't mention that for those of you that watch us on Facebook, Facebook was acting up again today, and I even did all of the stuff to make it work. Like after their previous outage, my password changed a bunch of times through through all my fault. I didn't realize they were having an outage, and so I unlinked it from this software and then relinked it, and it still told me, nah, this doesn't work. We'll try again next week, but it's really their own fault. Not them being the people who watch on Facebook, but them being Meta for having a crummy system. This one is interesting right here. For certain cars, particularly ones that shipped with the standard range and standard range plus 2170 battery packs, Tesla is now offering to allow you to purchase an lithium iron phosphate battery pack replacement. And it comes with a couple acknowledgments that you have to acknowledge that the total overall range is lower. But because it's a Tesla LFP, they already recommend that you charge it to 100%. So your usable range on a day-to-day basis has actually gone up. And they also wanted to let you know that it's going to charge differently as far as the charging curves are different than the 2170, and your car will probably be a little bit slower because of the way that the LFPs have their power output. And also, your car will be probably heavier. So when you get this retrofit, they change out your suspension to make it still feel the same, even though it weighs a couple 100 pounds more. Uh, I think that you could just do this if you wanted to. Say your battery degradation was higher than you wanted, or any number of reasons. But the main reason Tesla was doing this was for warranty replacements. So if you had an SR or SR Plus, and you got a warranty battery replacement, they would offer you this. You'd sign the waiver, and you'd get a new LFP pack. So let's see. Yeah, so it's mainly aimed at people under warranty. The option is now available for those vehicles that were initially equipped with the 2170 cells. It includes upgrades to the suspension to handle the heavier pack. They shifted to LFP packs in all of their entry-level cars, including the Model Y, and now early SR Plus and rear-wheel drive owners that require battery replacement under warranty can opt to have an LFP pack replace their 2170 pack. And in the agreement, owners are required to sign an agreement that outlines the advantages and potential drawbacks of the LFP pack. Benefits highlighted by Tesla are the extended service life and increased range offered by the LFP pack compared to the original 2170s. And the increased range is primarily due to the fact that they can be charged to 100% daily, because that's the way Tesla recommends you treat an LFP pack. LFPs still, just like all the other lithium chemistries, don't exactly like to be charged 100%, but they need it sometimes for both the Tesla BMS and other BMSs out there. They need to see where the top of the pack is because uh, while lithium batteries have a flat discharge curve, the iron lithium iron batteries, they are even flatter. Like it takes basically machine learning to learn where the bottom of the pack is, and since it is a consumable product, where the bottom and the top is does change as the battery ages, temperatures, internally and externally, uh, any number of factors. So Tesla just said just charge it to full, and it's whatever iron chemistry they're using is tolerant enough of it that It's not any real amount of degradation. Whereas like my home batteries, they're iron phosphate as well, and they're different chemistry than Tesla's using, and they still have a recommended range that's under 100% that you discharge through and charge up to. But they don't say don't run it to zero and don't charge it to 100% because, again, it doesn't affect them as much as NMC or any of the other formulations. IT. All right, I don't know if chat's working, but I see that you guys are there, so I will continue. Uh, so the drawbacks that Tesla points out, as I said, less performance in 0 to 60 time by about half a second, and it's heavier. And they said they'll upgrade the suspension, springs, dampers, and perform a four-wheel alignment. Nice. And then here's a screenshot of the document that you have to sign. But moving on, we talked about Porsche and LFP packs. Let's take a look at see what Mr. Rohan Patel says. He says this is quite conservative. The reality for Tesla vehicles is actually significantly better than this chart. And the chart he's referring to, it takes a lot of energy to build an electric vehicle, so are EVs cleaner than their gas guzzling counterparts? According to a new report by Bloomberg NEF, the answer is a resounding yes. So let's take a look at this chart now. And remember what Rohan said is that Tesla's numbers are better than these. So we're looking at. Right, so the charts are all the same setup. So behind my face is EV and ICE for the UK, and then Germany, US, China, and Japan. All right, so in use is the green. So using an ICE makes way more combustion and pollution and all the other stuff as we expected. And these numbers for the EV get even better if you are on solar or hydro, nuclear, stuff like that. So, and the reason the EV is so high in the US is we still have a lot of coal and methane in our mix, but that's going to vary by region. That's the overall right there for the country. And let's see, the purple is in the battery manufacturing. Actually seems better in the US, except for, Japan seems to be the best overall. And then the blue is the vehicle manufacturing. So you have almost identical between the two because you're making a metal shell. And then you add the battery on top of it, and then very quickly in usage, it all comes down. So these are in 60 metric tons of CO2 and total CO2 emissions of medium-sized ICE and battery electric vehicles produced in 2023 and used for 250,000 kilometers. And then the other thing to remember there is that the gas car doesn't get any cleaner as you drive it over its lifetime, whereas the EV can. It doesn't always, but it can. We talked a couple weeks ago about how a coal plant had been replaced. So every EV in that region that wasn't being charged off grid, all cleaner at the same time that they shut that plant down all at once. Whereas the gas cars there, they just kept on doing what they do. And as you run them, they get oil buildup, they get tar, they get soot, and they get less efficient until their next tune up where they get almost as good as when they were new, and repeat. It's down, down, down. And not down in a good way, but down as in they get worse. It's weird that when bad news about EVs, that it's Tesla that's always singled out, but when it's good news, Tesla's conveniently mixed into the bunch. Rohan says that's actually excellent news. To be honest, the bunch of EVs are far, far better than internal combustion vehicles. All I was saying is that Tesla's even better than the bunch. And Tibor says he meant the same. Well, they need to separate the nomenclature. There are EVs and then there are Tesla EVs. Nah, come on, guy. People tend to forget that when comparing ICE to EV on production emissions, you have to remember that the ICE V has likely reached the threshold of diminishing returns, while EV battery manufacturing is still relatively low volume with lots of improvement potential. Like when you look at, for instance, the battery manufacturing portion, uh, Toyota, Tesla, and VW are, I mean, everybody is, but they are making significant efforts into reducing the emissions, among other things, of the battery manufacturer. Tesla's going with their dry anode, um, or dry cell process that they're trying for. Toyota's beating on that super battery, the solid state. And then we've got a couple of Chinese and Japanese and Korean companies that have already demonstrated commercializable. I think one of them did a commercial cell, but technologies that could be pushed into production any number of months from now, that have some really outstanding properties for longevity and capacity and power, and of course reducing the emissions and the costs, which is what we want. And then these batteries, they get better, roughly 5 to 8% better each year, and then we don't necessarily see those improvements get pushed into a commercial product every year, but uh, that's why you see these bumps in whatever statistic you're looking at for the battery that you want to see improve, where they all get better, at least in stages, and the weight doesn't go up for for this increase in performance, which is which is what we're working on. It's what we want. Not quite as impressive as we see with chips with silicon. Uh, we're just not there yet, and we haven't been dumping the R&D into it for that to happen. But we'll continue to see improvements. I don't know that we'll ever see doubling like that. Lee says, "Greetings and happy Sunday. Sorry. Hope everyone has a great day." Yeah, it would be weird for me to be here on Saturday, wouldn't it? Uh, so next up, we've got a study from the IIHS that uh, ADAS safeguards are lacking across brands. So we just talked about the Tesla recall and the one that's been done already. The upsides, the IIHS expects improvements to be rapid and readily available via software updates, and all systems scored well in at least one category. Yeah. Uh, is that a? Let's discover more. All right, so let's go ahead and look into the article and close these extra tweets. All right, so the safeguards are lacking across brands, with the 14 of the partially automated systems receiving a marginal or poor rating. In the release shared on Tuesday, the IIHS released early results from the new rating system. And this is the same one that Mark was telling us about weeks ago, where we didn't get the full results because they weren't done yet. And they're still not done, but they gave us some partial results now. What is that on the back of this car? Looks like a large, fair, like, prize, like a stuffed animal. In a press release shared on Tuesday, the IHS released early results, noting that partial automation systems from Ford, Tesla, Nissan, and other automakers that were tested were lacking in multiple categories. The study offered ratings of good, acceptable, marginal, or poor, uh, both overall and in specific categories. Well, we've got a ways to go then, don't we? Let's see. They evaluated BMW, Ford, General Motors, Genesis, Lexus, Mercedes, Nissan, Tesla, Volvo. They didn't do Polestar? Interesting. Said David Harkey, the IAHS president. Most of them don't include adequate measures to prevent misuse and keep drivers from losing focus on what's on the road. So that's probably where they all got a mark. Of the 14 systems they tested thus far, only one system from any automaker was deemed acceptable. While 2 were rated marginal, 11 were rated poor, none were rated good. Wow. The categories that were individually rated for each system included driver monitoring, attention reminders, emergency procedures, lane change, adaptive cruise control, resume, cooperative steering, and safety features. Interesting. I can't wait to see the full. They gave Tesla's Autopilot and FSD systems poor ratings overall, while Pilot Assist, Nissan Pro Pilot, Mercedes Active Distance Assist Distronic. Mercedes, that's a stupid name. The 8080, but like if you try to say it out, that's stupid. Ford Blue Cruise and several others were rated poor. Driver monitoring and attention reminders were some of the lower rated categories across most brands, highlighting the ability for drivers to trick systems into thinking they're being fully aware. And as we just talked about with the Apple engineer, don't do that. But when you're selling these things to people, they view a good system as one where they can keep their hands off the wheel for any number of seconds and just look out the window. The IIHS, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, your insurance company doesn't want your hands off the wheel, and the NHTSA, they don't want your hands off the wheel unless you can reach back up real quick. I mean, obviously they'll let you use the Ford and other systems that let you take your hands off the wheel, but I'd like to see the criteria they used, and obviously none of these systems do a good job of making sure that the drivers aren't tricking them. But I want to see how they did in actual performance in like when we look at the old versions of the test, we could see which ones didn't run over pedestrians, which ones um, stayed in the lane or did better at getting back in the lane. I want to see that sort of thing and see how it was performing. But again, as they said, uh, these should be able to be improved with software updates, and most of the vehicles that have these systems are physically capable of over-the-air software updates, whether or not their manufacturers have been doing that to date. So here we see a 21 to 23 Model 3. Overall rating poor. Driver monitoring was poor. Attention reminders were poor. I'm guessing this is after the recall, but no, but there we go. We have the software version. So we could look that up. Let me. Is that a picture? It is a picture. 2023.7.10. That is probably way pre recall. 2023.7.10. So I guess let's use the Not Tesla app. And we'll go to software updates. Like we're talking early 2023, 2023.7. So the 7th week of 2023. Can I search for an update? 2023.7. Dot 30. No, not even dot 30. Dot 10. So this was. There's still one car on this update. It might be the car at the test facility. Um, so it was FSD beta 11.4.2. That was a really crummy version, I tell you what. I mean, I've been on 11.4.9 for months. Version 12.3 point something is going out to folks who are lucky enough to still be on a 2023 build. Anyone on 2024 build has not seen it yet that I've noticed. All right, so driving visualization improvements, full self-driving beta, suspension, park assist, steering wheel heat, auto steering wheel heat, new language support, Sentry mode lighting. Additional FSD improvements is an undocumented change. App displays the vehicle's route, reverse camera, climate warnings. Yeah, this is this one I'm looking forward to. The one-time charge limit change. Yeah, it's gonna be fun because what I find is sometimes I move the charge limit up for a trip and then forget to move it back. But that's coming in a future update. The yeah, so this is pre-recall. This is pre-recall. So the next thing I'd like to see on that is what a current version of the software, like something within a month, looks like. Something that old. So the 7th week of 2023 would be February. This was software that was over a year old. We're headed into April in a couple weeks. So you tested a year-old software and rated it poorly. Anyway, let's continue to see how well this year-old software did. Uh, Emergency procedures were average. Lane change was good. It better be. So that obviously tells us that they're not using the base package, because the base package doesn't pick back up after you manually change lanes. And with the navigate and autopilot or FSD, you can signal, and then it'll just continue when you get back. All right, so adaptive cruise control resume was rated poor, and of course, in the new software, if you have the one pull or one push, there is no active cruise control. If you have the two push, then I don't imagine that will change at all, because it has never changed in how it operates. Cooperative steering, Tesla doesn't really do that, I don't believe. I mean, I've felt sometimes, like, like when you were a kid and you would move your controller, even before we had accelerometers in our controller. I, I I don't know that the car has actually it knows that you're tugging on the wheel a little bit more, but I don't know that it actually is listening to that. And the safety features. I'd like more details on what safety features are that they were rated poorly. This is vehicle. What's the difference here? So overall rating, driver monitoring. This is the same thing. Yeah. How do you get two different scores? Is one FSD and one autopilot? Yeah. Okay, so autopilot versus FSD. Lane change went down with FSD. No, it didn't. It didn't. Lane change went way down with FSD. Emergency procedures stay the same. Lane change went from good to poor. So lane change went down. Attention reminders. Yeah. Yeah, I need to see what is in this test. That's the Lexus teammate with advanced drive did fairly well on this test. All right. Super Cruise on the 24 Sierra. Uh, it got overall marginal. It got some greens in there. Blue Cruise. It got some greens in there too. These results are worrying, considering how quickly vehicles with these partial automations are hitting our highways, Harkey says. But there's a silver lining. If you look at the performance of the group as a whole, no single system did well across the board, but in each category, at least one system performed well. That means that fixes are readily available, and in some cases, may be accomplished with nothing more than a simple software update. Below, you can see ratings for each system tested. So Lexus got acceptable. Super Cruise and ProPilot Assist with Navilink got marginal. And everybody else got a big red mark. Wow. I am curious what the comments are going to say on this one, because clearly they are not testing the same thing that we would think of on these tests. This message brought to you by Lexus. The IIHS is more concerned with losing out on high premiums due to proliferation of these systems than an actual improvement in road safety. I could see where you might think that, but I don't think that's. I think they're literally looking at actuarial tables, because that's what they are. They're insurance companies. They grew fat from insuring F-150s and now face existence challenge. It's the best derated. No. I mean, they can pass the savings on to you, or they can keep the rates high and eat the profits. This person thinks it was a Tesla hit piece. I don't see that. IHS keeping the driver's seat. Keeping the driver in the driver's seat for years to come. Long live humans over bots. Oh wait, they're not living long because they're crashing without ADAS anymore. I think they would probably prefer to, because then you can just rake in the profits on a computer driving. Everything just maps out the way you expect it to, other than weather and stuff like that. Beware of self-driving reports that prioritize driver nannying over driving ability. Yeah. They're effectively saying that all cars with driver nannying are completely without driver nannying are completely unsafe, i.e., all those without self-driving. If it's well, actually no, they couldn't really because if it was a level 4, they none of that crap would matter, and they would then be selling insurance to Tesla, who would then be on the hook. Let's see. If it's the most important criterion to safety, how can a car with a mediocre driver nannying not be safer than one with none? True. Therefore, their conclusions are illogical, contradictory, and bogus. I mean, I see where you're coming from, but we need to see what they were testing. I mean, it looks a certain way. It's becoming clear in self-driving videos that we are nearing the point where drivers aren't skilled enough to monitor self-driving. Yes. When that happens, nannying could potentially make the cars less safe in some conditions, especially if the nannying is bothersome, which could lead drivers to not use the system. We've seen that in the past. So it's not the government. Looks like we are investigating Chinese high-say lidar for being a national security risk too. Uh, I think that's a poke at the TikTok situation or the offshore unloading cranes that have cellular modems in them that the customers didn't know that they had ordered or that they didn't order and they were still in there. Satisfaction of all cars should have seatbelts, automatically lock everyone in their seats as soon as they sit, and the steering wheel should have a glue-like substance. You can't let go until the car stops. With neck braces deploy around the driver's neck to force him to look straight during the drive. And phone calls disabled by jamming signals. Oh, and limit cars to maximum speed of 30 kilometers per hour, maybe 20. And each car should be required to have a man walking up front with a flag and a megaphone to warn vulnerable road users. Only then can we all cheer and celebrate that we finally have a safe car. Oh. They are checking attention reminders, so the car should make annoying sounds all the time to keep you attentive. Same sounds that reviewer hammer as annoying. Watch the review of the Vietnamese car. Can't please everyone. And then this person, where I am, wanted to know what's going on. And this person says they found them. So let's see. Core rating principles. Partially automated systems need to ensure that the driver's eyes are directed at the road and their hands are on the steering wheel or ready to grab it. I thought that most of those systems did a pretty good job of that. I'm curious the criteria now. Again, escalating alerts and appropriate emergency procedures are required when the driver does not meet those conditions. None of these systems are level 3 or higher, so the best they can do is stop in the lane by law. So some of this obviously needs to be directed at the government. Um, interesting. You can't win on that scale. And what did Lexus do to make them happy? All automated lane changes should be initiated or confirmed by the driver. That would explain the FSD, but then that also doesn't tell us what setting they used. Obviously, the default setting for FSD is it's just gonna go. But that's stupid. If it's letting you know and then it does it, that's fine. Um, this test seems premature. When traffic ahead causes the active cruise control to bring the vehicle to complete stop, it should not automatically resume if the driver is not looking at the road or if the vehicle's been stopped for too long. I'd be pissed at that system. It's just like those people that you get behind on a stoplight and they just sit there and they get through and then they stick you at the red light. If you know it's on and then the car starts moving, you can start looking again. And that's stupid. I mean, I get it's the ultimate safest for somebody who's got to pay out, in the case of insurance companies, but that's not a good system at all. I mean, how many people keep their eyes directly on the car in front of them when you've been stopped for like 10 minutes? That's stupid. Uh, I could see the Tesla green light chime from FSD when it's not really active and it just goes boop. Okay, but that's stupid. That's, nobody's gonna want to drive this system. Continue on before I get frustrated with these people. The sustained lane centering function should encourage the driver to share control of the steering rather than switch off automatically when the driver adjusts the wheel. What? Some systems do that, but that's a matter of preference right there. Like, if I steer, I don't want the car to continue steering again on the Tesla system. And I get it on the, was it GM or Ford, where you can change lanes manually. You can, and then when you let go, it picks up again. If you know it's going to do that, I think that's a matter of personal preference. But if I steer my car, I don't want it to continue to steer on me because I'm steering because it's not doing something that I want. Switching off risks disincentivizing drivers from staying physically engaged in the driving task. What? That makes no sense. If you have manually disengaged the car, then you've done it for a reason. You're clearly paying attention because like, oh hey, I've got the con. And the car says you have the con. This is not a good test. I'd like to see what the next version looks like. And I don't see Tesla passing this thing anytime soon. Because the users, the drivers, would revolt. Unless there's a switch that says uh, complies with IIHS 100%. They could do that tomorrow if they wanted to, but I don't know any drivers that would want this. This is goofy. Let's scroll this up so I'm looking closer to you guys. Partial driving automations should be designed to prevent drivers from using it when their seatbelt is unfastened or when forward collision warning or automatic emergency braking or lane departure warning and prevention are disabled. I kind of like that. I mean, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, none of this stuff should work. And I don't know of too many of them that do work when your seatbelt's not on, but maybe they found one, or maybe that's just the wording of the test. But the lane departure warning and prevention system on the Tesla isn't on by default, so that could be part of that problem. Okay. Hotel. You want to say hi? You just woke up. Is that why it was so quiet in here? I like your bow. Oh, you looking at my snack? Yeah. You gotta go do some work. Okay. So let's continue on with the what else is in this thing? Yep, a hand warmer menu. Okay. Uh, yeah, so these make sense. Like, if you're gonna turn it on, then the car should still be paying attention that you're staying in the lane and on the road, and probably should nudge you back into the lane. So I'm very mixed, but mostly on this test. Ratings are based on the vehicle's ability to meet these requirements. A selection of the IHS research on partial driving automation is provided in the references section. We shall go there. I'm curious how they came up with some of these criteria. Interesting, they don't measure how well the systems drive, but how well the monitoring features and the features we think are important but have no data to back up work. I imagine they do have data to back it up. It might not be good data, but it's going to be data if they're insurance companies. And you don't have to believe you don't. And if you don't have the feature, you're going to get a failing grade. Hami? What's Hami mean now? Hami is her generic word for I don't have a word for it. Hami what? 3D printer used to be Hami, as did printer. Well, she also has to say printer. All right, so let's see. So a system that can't even leave its own driveway but monitors you and beeps at you constantly gets the best rating, while one that can drive perfectly and never gets in a crash, but doesn't beep at its driver enough, will fail with the worst rating. In general, consumers don't care about this in the slightest, but will no doubt confuse it for its ability to drive itself. Yeah, that would be something right there, because if you look at the Lexus and you try to compare it to Blue Cruise or Super Cruise or FSD, you're going to be disappointed because it doesn't do half of what any of these systems do. But apparently, it'll beep at you and won't turn on if you're not looking at the road when it goes time to start or whatever. I kind of agree with that guy. Brought to you by Lexus now. Anecdote: I almost killed a guy. I was turning right in a one-way street, and I didn't look right. I should have, but I didn't. When the left side just cleared, I drove up, and the car stopped by itself and set off an alarm. A runner ran a light in front of my car. If I didn't have auto braking, I would have hit him forward into traffic. And the oncoming car, where were we? The oncoming car would have hit him again, very much like we saw with the cruise situation. I cannot imagine him surviving that. That runner can thank Tesla for saving his life, and I thank Tesla that I didn't have my insurance premium raised. And no, I have no sympathy for a grown adult who runs right in front of a vehicle that is obviously going to move forward at any time. Um, I'm kind of with him on this, but pedestrians do have right of way, and they really should also have some self preservation, but it's really on the driver. All right, let's see. All right, that's enough of that. So let's see if this references page makes sense before we go on to other things. Also, 32 pages. Hmm. I might just come back to this and see. Let's ask the robot about it and then go from there. Mm-hmm. Here's a summary. It's going to give us test protocol. It's going to give us test protocol and rating guidelines. It's going to give us the core rating principles. It's going to give us a test environment and vehicle prep and the driver monitoring system tests. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna look at this and then we'll talk about it on another day because wow, I can't even put it in the notes because I'm on the notes right now. So I'll just leave it open and we'll go on to something else. All right, so where is my cursor? Some legacies that can actually deliver their product. This legacy school bus maker just delivered 1,000th electric school bus. So we're talking about Thomas. I say Thomas, but that's a Freightliner in the picture. Did they both do it? Oh, Thomas must have changed their logo or the way they do it. Yeah, it does say Thomas in there. Okay, anyway. So Thomas Built Buses has delivered their 1,000th electric bus. And it was a safety liner C2 Julie. The electric bus was delivered to Meriwether County School System as part of a larger order. The Safety Liner C2 has a 244 kilowatt hour standard electric battery pack and 295 peak horsepower. Features over the air battery management system updates and has a bilateral vehicle to grid capability. It can charge in 2 to 3 hours on a DC fast charger and has a range of up to 150 miles. Thomas Built Buses says the 81 passenger electric bus is ideal for in town routes. The Julie buses are part of Meriwether School's first electric buses, and they replace some of its current fleet of 46 diesel buses. There we go. It's part of Southwest Atlanta and has 2,400 pre-K. So I'm curious how they deliver these things to the school system. Obviously, with a gas bus, you can just drive it, but this is no gas bus. So do you tow it? Do you put it on a flatbed and strap it down? You still drive it, but now it just takes longer because you only go 150 miles at a time. Interesting. Also, congrats to Thomas Bill. Moving on. I think we've got some more records going on. We talked about the Cybertruck guy, and so there wasn't supposed to be an IF metal segment of this show, but IG Metal was involved in this one, and they got us there. So Ford is losing millions per day due to a strike in Germany, where it's retiring the Focus. Let's take a look at my notes real quick. So the reason I included this story, I say to myself, is that Ford's supplier Louis plant and the surrounding supplier strikes have been added to illustrate the complexities of labor relations during the automotive history's transition to EVs. That's not reason enough for me to put them in there. The reason for the closure of the Sar Louis plant was set to close due to Ford's strategic move to produce its next gen EVs in Spain rather than Germany, which makes sense. And then uh, Ford extended an employment offer, despite their planned closure. They extended an offer to keep 1,000 workers employed until the end of 2032, with no forced layoffs and an option for early retirement with a severance deal. And then, where we get to Sweden, IG Metal has struck. The IG Metal Union has initiated a strike at the suppliers, not at the Ford plant itself, seeking a deal similar to what the Ford workers received. This action has led to a halt in production due to part shortages, which is, this is what IF Metal says they're doing to Tesla in Sweden. And if that was what was happening, there would be a lot less complaining about what's going on, a lot less fighting overall. But that's not what's happening in Sweden. So the contrast with IF Metal here is IG Metal was asked to join the sympathy strikes against Tesla to be in solidarity with IF Metal, and IG Metal told them to go pound sand. They said it wasn't ethical or legal, and also wouldn't help their case for what they had brewing. So these people would have not been helped because it would have been for show for IF Metal. So the moral and legal stance. Uh, so this actually stops production, whereas IF Metal's sympathy strikes have not stopped anything. Not anything at the Tesla plant, I should say. Which has little to no impact in production, with very few workers actively seeking the primary or sympathy actions at the Tesla site. Whereas here, uh, you don't have parts, you can't build the car. Ford is down, and and really it's because they want the same thing that Ford's got. So the union here is working for what the union members have asked for, rather than what makes the union stronger or better or in their own interests. Um, and that's the complaint we keep hearing out of Sweden, is that this doesn't help me. What is this for? All right, so then the moral and legal stance. So earlier discussions, we talked about this. IG Metal refused to join IF Metal in sympathy strikes, considering such actions immoral, illegal, and potentially detrimental to their own members' upcoming efforts, like this one. All right, so I think that's all we need to say about that. Let's continue on to more fun stuff. So Rivian, they're going big again with their next EV. So this is the Rivian delivery van, believe it or not, underneath the skin of this monstrosity, and it's right-hand drive. It's being delivered to the Canadian Post Office or Canadian Postal Service. I forget what they call themselves. And why they didn't just use a Rivian van with right-hand drive, I don't know. But whatever, you can not, not just from the wheels, but you can kind of see what's going on here. And let's look at the specs. So they're going to be modifying the commercial van chassis to complete with their 100 kilowatt hour lithium iron phosphate pack, and their software stack, and their dashboard. Excuse me, and their dashboard. And Rivian developed safety features such as automatic emergency braking and the 360 camera system. So the Rivian fleet chassis will underpin all electric versions of Morgan C250, which is the step van announced March of 2023. The C250E, that's effectively a Morgan Olson bodied right-hand drive Rivian uh, designed specifically for consideration by post offices. Okay, can you see that? Yeah, so you got the step there into the street, and then you got your doors, and then you got your back. Okay, yeah, I can see this. The partnership with JBCPO began with a visit to the EV facility in Normal, Illinois, where John Poindexter and other leaders from JBPCO, JBPCO were impressed by what they saw. Let's see, top comment is, this is great news. JBCPO spoke highly of not just the hardware, but also the software. Hopefully this leads to new clients, and I'm assuming the skateboard is a lot easier to make than the whole truck. So the factory should be able to handle it. At least not without running it sideways through the factory. And by sideways, I mean literally laying on its side. They also got an order from AT&T. Yeah, AT&T is buying the whole Rivian van as it is. It was also involved with their over-the-air update system. Oh, that's true, because the AT&T is probably their provider, just like it is for Tesla. Maybe fleet management software. If not, not sure if it's a toe dip or precursor to a larger order. So here's what it looks like in the Olson, the Morgan Olson. So basically, it's what we've seen before, but right-hand drive, and instead of that nice blue sleek plastic uh, Rivian van system, it's on one of those metal boxy deals for corporate. But it says Rivian in the steering wheel. So let's see. Electric says it's not immediately obvious what advantage the Morgan Olson body has over the Rivian's streamlined shell in regards to a Canada Post bid or USPS for that matter, but there's no question that there's a place for specialized bodies in the commercial truck space. And if those can ride on a proven all-electric chassis, so much better. Agreed. I can only imagine it has to do with pre-built accessories, kind of like the Ford Lightning needing the same bed dimensions as the F-150 to get access to all the aftermarket pieces. Yeah, and then all the vans we've seen, the Dodge, the Ford, and the who's the other van? The Dodge, the ProMaster, this is the Ram, the Ford. Who else makes a van? I think those are the only ones that have the same body. Oh, the Mercedes. The Mercedes has the same body as well, so that all your upfits just fit. And then talking about the aerodynamics, yeah. Oh no, I don't want to reply. I want to thumbs up that. All right, let's move on. All right, so after the arson attack last week on the Tesla plant in Berlin, they have restarted production. Ta-da! A nice video showing them back in action. Let's see if I can play it without the music coming in, and let me check to make sure I haven't left somebody in the waiting room. I have not, because the notes are going right over top of that. All right, so there's like a electric winding down sound. There's a dark factory. Then this could be a guard with a flashlight at some point. Everything's just paused in place. There's the guard with the flashlight. Everything just stopped. I wonder if they had any like coast downtime or building GPSs or uh, power packs, mega packs to keep going. And then here we see that the plant is back in operation as it should be. Congrats to the Tesla Berlin team. Continuing on. All right, so we just talked about Thomas buses, Thomas built buses. Uh, let's talk a little bit about the Hyundai Ioniq 5. It got a refresh and is now capable of over-the-air updates. Why it wasn't before is a whole nother question. So you might be looking at the screen and wondering what's different. They didn't change much, did they, on the outside? They didn't. But one thing they did add on the outside that people have been asking for is a rear wiper. And folks are hoping that this will affect the EV6 from Kia as well, since it's the same platform. And let's take a look at the details. This is for the Korean version of the car, so everything is translated, but we have to imagine that most of it is going to have translation over to the US version of the car as well. So Merleman17 says, can you play some songs by Cupcake? They are a banger. I would have to see if I could get the rights to play songs by Cupcake. I've got a audio service that I do have rights to, and I can see if Cupcake's in there. Stand by. I'm curious what they sound like. If I spelled the name of the service right. All right, so while that loads up, the pixel motif is going to continue on. The Korean version of the car is also getting some digital side mirrors, which are digital cameras in place of side view mirrors. Not available in the US. So yeah, we can kind of see that there. So that's going to help with their aerodynamics, and it's going to increase their range. And it also means that in addition to the range tests being different, now the car is different. So we can't even look at their numbers and say how they might do in the US. How am I not? Oh, I know how I'm not logged in. My browser reset a couple times since then. All right, so you said they were called Cupcake. Let me do a search. Oh, they have a new feature called Link Match AI. I wonder what that means. All right, so Cupcake is not in my licensing service. Uh, let's see. So they also have improved the user experience with access to Hyundai's Digital Key 2, which lets you use your phone or Apple Watch to unlock and lock the vehicle. The Ioniq 5 also has walkaway door locks, though these might only function with the key fob and not the digital key. It wasn't clear from the translation, obviously. I'm curious how Tesla does with this. I hope that they can use these new standard keys, but give us the functionality we're used to. I don't know. It's going to depend on Android and Apple for whether they're interested in dealing with that. They clearly more interested in Android Auto or CarPlay. Uh, Roman says, "Don't play it as a joke." um, the largest change on the exterior is the rear wiper. I like this like rear view camera system. There, it looks like it's got a washer, and yeah, it does. It does have a washer. Their front camera doesn't have a washer. I remember reading about that, and they're hoping that it could, but they didn't see that. I don't have the EPA numbers, or yet know if Hyundai will hold back some of this capacity. We'll see. Oh, the battery increased to 77.4 kilowatt. Sorry, to 84 kilowatt hours from 77.4. And you've got this new lights on the dash. So if you're not in the car and you're charging, it'll tell you the charge level at a glance. It'll also work with like the voice commands and certain other features to tell you what's going on. So that's the Hyundai Ioniq 5 refresh. So if you had your eyes on that car and it's coming out probably at the next model year. And for those that were looking for a more affordable EV, Volkswagen announces the production start date for its most affordable $20,000 ID4. Sorry, not ID4. The ID1 EV. The ID4 is much more expensive, about twice. This is the price point we need, says Kevin Gerbert. So let's click into it and see what date they're going to start this thing. That's basically the news there. You know how I take these announcements from the legacy automakers, even less than I take the announcements from Tesla on stuff. Not holding my breath. Like, that's on the calendar. And when it gets here, we'll check again. Hey, cool. If they get here early, even better. So starting at 21,000 US dollars, and it's going to happen in 2027. So it's a little bit further yet, but they have to have already been started on it to make that date. So that means good news for us here. And in 2027, it's just 2 model years away. I have a feeling that they're going to have competition when they get here. And the working title is ID1, and the vehicle is planned for 2027. Okay. That's a concept of it. So it's not going to look anywhere near as good as that, probably, based on how most legacies do their concepts. We definitely know it'll have smaller wheels, unless this is going to be the premium model, probably pushing 30. It'll probably be just as sleek because the aerodynamics are important to an EV. They might even have that paint color available, but probably not. Interesting. Well, let's wish them luck and continue on. We'll check back on them in 2 years and see. 2 model years. It's 3 calendar years. Hyundai unveils the ST1 EV platform. I think we looked at the Kia version of this with the swappable backs a couple weeks ago. So the ST1 EV platform is going to start in Korea. And this is what we need. We need more form factors. So if you're going to electrify all the things, you need a thing for everybody. So look at that. We'll keep an eye on this and see how it goes. They probably have a bigger one for North America. All right, so then we had IFT3. We talked about it briefly on last week's show, and it happened. And it went quite well. We're not going to play it and watch this, but let's take a look at and see what SpaceX says happened. It was just exciting for me. I found myself like leaning forward in the chair. It was a little bit emotional. Um, like I said, I went and saw Falcon Heavy and Dragon 2's first missions in person, and I just haven't found the ability to get on over to Texas. So hopefully I'll be able to see a Starship launch at some point. All right, so on March 14th, Starship successfully lifted off at 8:25 a.m. Central Time from Starbase, and for the second time, all 33 Raptor engines on the Super Heavy booster started up successfully and completed a full duration burn during ascent. Starship executed its second successful hot stage separation, which is where the rocket and the booster rocket and the ship they both have their engines on at the same time, and the ship then blasts away from the booster. And that was successful without destroying the booster. Starship executed its. Oh, we just had that. Igniting all 6 of the second stage Raptor engines before separating from the vehicle. Following separation, Super Heavy booster successfully completed its flip maneuver and completed a full boost back burn to send it towards the splashdown in the Gulf of Mexico. Quite a splash. Super Heavy successfully lit several engines for its first ever landing burn, but not enough. Before the vehicle experienced a rapid unscheduled disassembly, or RUD. The booster's flight concluded at approximately 462 meters in altitude, or just under 7 minutes into the mission. So if it concluded at 462 meters in altitude, that suggests they blew it up. Because otherwise it would have concluded in the ocean at full speed. Starship's 6 second stage Raptor engines all started successfully and powered the vehicle to its expected orbit, becoming the first Starship to complete a full duration ascent burn. While coasting, Starship accomplished several of the flight's test additional objectives, including the opening and closing of its payload bay door, aka PEZ dispenser, which is going to launch the upgraded Starlink satellites. and initiating propellant transfer demonstration. So they got that was a $50 million objective for the NASA Artemis mission, is being able to demonstrate that they could transfer propellant in space. So this was a really good deal for them. They actually made some money on this flight. Starship did not attempt its planned on-orbit relight of a single Raptor engine due to the vehicle roll rates during the coast. The vehicle was tumbling around its long axis. Da, da, da. Results from these demonstrations will come after post-flight data review is complete, so it could be a few more days yet. Starship went on to experience its first ever entry from space on its side. So the heat shield was kind of parallel with the flow of the plasma, and live views of this entry were made possible by Starlink terminals operating on Starship. The flight test conclusion came during entry, with the last telemetry signals received via Starlink from Starship approximately 49 minutes into the mission. While our team reviews the data collected from this flight, Starship and Super Heavy vehicles are preparing for upcoming flights as we seek to increase our launch cadence throughout the year. So now they're under investigation yet again because it didn't go according to their flight plan, uh, and the vehicle was lost. But uh, they are also the ones leading this investigation. So once they tell the FAA what they think went wrong and what they're going to do to fix it, the FAA will say yay or nay, and then we get to see the next launch after they fix what they said they're going to fix. They may have already fixed it because, just like with the cars, this company is constantly making improvements. See, the rapid iterative development approach has been the basis for all SpaceX's major innovative advancements, including Falcon, Dragon, and Starlink. Recursive development is essential as we work to build a fully reusable transportation system capable of carrying both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, help humanity return to the moon, and ultimately travel to Mars and beyond. Thank you to our customers, Cameron County, spaceflight fans, and the wider community for the continued support and encouragement. And congratulations to the entire SpaceX team on an exciting third flight test of Starship. So there we go. Continuing on. This one is, unfortunately, the San Juan Basin has also been a major contributor to methane pollution for over 80 years. Caution, well may vent at any time. Oil well. And he's responding to Western Leaders Net. A new study of the U.S. energy industry methane emissions are triple what the government thinks, with data showing the biggest leaks in the Permian Basin. And you do all that while still not doing what you say you're doing. Basically, the models that they've had for these oil wells has been producing a lot more methane than anticipated, which, as a reminder, methane is a lot more potent of a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide or some of the others. And my batteries are switching. Why? I'm not out of battery. I am lower in battery than I want to be for this, though. Let's check and see what the solar coming in is looking like. We can switch back and let it recover a little bit. This is my emergency solar system. By emergency, I mean it's like the battery backup for the house. Should we lose main power, it will cover all the 120 circuits except for the baby's room. All right, what is this? Comparing the total cost of ownership of most popular vehicles in the United States. Oh, I get it. I opened it on this computer, so it scrolls to where it was. Oh no! But hit home on the notebook instead of on the browser. I forget exactly what point I had about this particular paper. So this is comparing. I remember what it is now. This is comparing like for like EVs versus uh, combustion cars. So on a compact sedan, you'll save net 10,581 on a compact sedan versus an EV, and a regular sedan versus an EV, you'll save $127. That's not as high as I'd expect, but also again the emissions will be lower. Uh, Compact SUV, you'll save 7,000. Midsize SUV, you'll save 4,000, and a pickup truck, you'll save 2,825. And this is what is the criteria on this? Like for how long? The 7-year TCO. So over 7 years, you're at a wash with the EV versus a fossil. I say a wash because over 7 years you can make $127, but that's significant on all the others. They're including taxes and fees, so those states that try to run the coals over you. And then they're also including price minus resale. So if they were to drop resale, this would be even better because resale is going to continue to constantly change. It's never been something you should be counting on in these calculations. It's the same reason I was weirded out by these fleets, especially the rental fleets that were counting on resale to be a certain level. Resale is gravy. It's bonus. It's you can't say, oh, well, we get 5% because you don't always get 5%. You'll pick a dud occasionally, or uh, interest rates could rise, or any number of reasons. Like Hertz complaining about their Model 3 investment. Uh, that's the gravy. You need to be focused on the operations of it all. Like, do you make enough in rent to pay for the car? So on compact sedan, the EV is much cheaper at TCO of 31,768 versus the compact combustion sedan at 42,348. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the chat so you guys can read the whole paper yourself, and then we will move on. First, let's ask the robot what it sees. I'm curious. So the document compares the total cost of ownership for popular gasoline-powered vehicles with the electric vehicle equivalents over a 7-year period. It reveals that EVs can offer significant savings with the Chevrolet Bolt EUV, so not even the regular Bolt EV. I didn't catch that. Tesla Model 3, Volkswagen ID4, and Tesla Model Y and Ford F-150 Lightning all being cheaper to own than their gasoline counterparts. The analysis includes a purchase price, fuel maintenance, insurance, taxes, and fees, with EVs generally costing less in fuel and maintenance, with the assumptions that vehicle prices, fuel economy, financial incentives, charging costs, and average miles driven per year are used to calculate the TCO. The document emphasizes that the economic benefits of EVs compared to traditional gasoline vehicles. Now that matches with what I saw when I loaded it up a while ago. Let's go on to the next one. So India has opened up a little bit to Tesla. They have a new scheme to waive EV import duties. My wife was telling me the import duties in Thailand are incredible, uh, which they are also courting Tesla for a factory there. So here are the conditions that India has done. They're the world's biggest automotive market where Tesla has yet to operate. The automaker has been negotiating in the country for years in order to find a way to avoid its high import duties on new vehicles. On a few occasions since 2021, it looked like they would come to terms. It's never went through. India's been insisting Tesla would instead build a factory in the country. Just you gotta build it before you find out if you built it right. Um, Last year, Musk met with them. So the new scheme is that it'll allow EV manufacturers to access lower 15% import duties on EVs valued at $35,000 or above for a total period of 5 years. But they are three main requirements that are required for companies to take advantage of the deal. They need a minimum investment of 4150 CR rupees. What? Anyway, about 500 million US dollars. Set up an EV manufacturing facility in India within 3 years of localization level. Uh, 3 years with a localization level of 25% by the third year and 50% by the fifth year. Yeah, like if they see the money there, they can do that quickly. Uh, Automakers taking advantage of the deal are limited to 40,000 total imported EVs at lower tariffs and no more than 8,000 units per years. I think they can work with this to judge their demand, but still not going to be quite representative of what they were asking for. Something. I mean, this is way better than what they have available today, but still doesn't give them a clear enough picture to make the kind of investment that they've been making as one of the world's largest automotive manufacturers. As far as like the Fremont plant uh, was huge last year, and it was always a kind of like just a spice of gravy. It was never meant to do those kind of numbers. Top commenter says 8K a year with a cap at 40K is a crack in the door, not much of an invitation. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I suspect Tesla will have a difficult time operating in India. I would recommend Tesla look at greener pastures. I mean, is it going to be harder than Germany or not? Is the real question. Because they can make it work there. Uh, Electrek seems to think that's a reasonable compromise. Tesla could start importing Model 3 and Y, justifying investment in service and charging infrastructure while they set up a factory over the course of 3 years. Is it going to take them that long? If they see the value, they can get it done in a year and a half. We've seen this with them. Assuming that the local labor will support such a project. I don't know if Tesla's going to go for it, but it seems likely considering all negotiations happened over the last few years. A max of 40,000 units is a bit limiting, though. So even Electric agrees that this is uh, it is a compromise, but wow, is it a compromise? Excuse me, like it's it's not a in the middle compromise. It's just uh, they have moved though. All right, continuing on. Check the collab cam again. All right, so the Mercedes EQXX, which is basically the electrified equivalent of their diesel hybrid, that little two-seater that I guess this one's not a two-seater with the two doors there. It's gone 627 miles on a charge with the AC on. And so the claim to fame with this car is its extreme aerodynamics, both the diesel version and the electric version. Let's click into it and see a little bit. I wasn't planning on it. It has just shattered its own efficiency records. Wait a minute. I am mixing these up. The one I'm thinking of is a Volkswagen, the diesel hybrid, and this Mercedes we talked about months ago. Months ago, when they were talking about doing it. And why did I mix them up? They look the same, and they're both German. All right, this is a 627 miles on a charge with the AC. They drove the Vision EQXX across the Arabian Desert, traveled from Riyadh to Dubai. All right, it clocked in efficiency of 8.4 miles per kilowatt hour as its aerodynamic factor cut through the air, battled the desert heat, and covered hundreds of miles on battery powered across empty highways. That's really not bad. 627 miles. for all the people saying that, oh yeah, EVs don't go far enough, this one can. Congrats. All right, so next up, man, I might have actually read up more on it than I realized they were two different cars. I, I totally thought it was the VW. That's what I get, I suppose. All right, that's supposed to make finding a trailer-friendly supercharger stalls easier. On the screen, you'll be able to, I guess, also in the phone app, be able to filter out superchargers that have pull-through stalls coming soon. This was a X post. Da, da, da. Yes, so Wes says supercharging team is always looking for opportunities to install these at new locations. We'll show trailer-friendly stalls on the in-vehicle UI to make it easier when road tripping with a trailer. There we go. Nick had pointed out pull-through superchargers for the win. Agreed. Of course, we don't know when. Sometime in the future, but he didn't say 2 weeks. He may as well have said 2 weeks, though. Ender says, "Good evening. Good evening, sir. Good to see you." One of Europe's largest truck stops is about to be electrified. Let's take a look at this one. BP's EV charging brand BP Pulse will electrify one of Europe's largest and busiest truck stops to power up the electric heavy goods vehicles, or HGVs. Ashford International Truck Stop in Kent. The 21-acre Ashford International Truck Stop currently offers 660 parking bays and convenience services for HGV drivers. It's got restaurants, shops, bars, and a gym. Close to Dover, the UK's busiest ferry port, and the shuttle freight via the Eurotunnel terminal in Folkestone. Around 3.5 million HGVs travel across the English Channel via the port of Dover and the Eurotunnel annually. So BP's Pulse acquisition and plan to electrify the vital truck stop will position it to better meet the needs of UK and European HGV operators transitioning to EVs. Not bad. I was looking for numbers. So they're going to host 20 megawatt chargers, 10 times 400 kilowatt chargers, and 125 times 100 kilowatt chargers. Wow. Yeah, you only really need the megawatt charger if you're on your break. The 400 kilowatt chargers and 100 kilowatt chargers will be great if that is your rest stop for the night. So that's going to be awesome. The 100 kilowatt charger will take quite a while from what we've seen from the buses here in the States that have been charging. I'm beeping all over the place. Why am I beeping like this? Stand by. All right, I will look at that a little bit. Had to see if it was related to this. So megawatt charger has the potential to fully charge an HGV up in 45 minutes. There we go, on their break, and enabling an onward charge rate of 310 miles on a single charge, depending on conditions. So there we go. Let's see how they do with actually delivering this. Next up, we've got the Federal Highway Administration requests comments on incorporating Tesla's NACS connector in federal requirements. I wish people would stop calling it that. It's NACS. They released it as North American Charge Standard, or JNACS, or J3400. Stupid name. Uh, it's the standard in North America right now. You've got VinFast and the commercial truck operators that haven't used CCS1, or sorry, the commercial truck operators that are using CCS1 instead of the MCS, the megawatt charging system. Everybody's using this plug except VinFast. So, as I said on the Tesla Live show, if this is just a formality and it's like the way they have to do it, that's fine. But if not, then they need to hear that they should just be using what everybody else is using, because CCS1 is done, and CHAdeMO is even way more done than that. Here's a link to the request for information. in the chat so that you can, you or your company or however you want to respond to this thing can can let them know that the J3400 is the way to go. It's an open standard. It's not a free standard, but it's an open standard. So Federal Highway, they're looking for expectations regarding market availability for the J3400 EVs and chargers, technical compatibility of J3400 with existing regulations, considerations regarding challenges and benefits of the implementation of the charging stations, market demands for the continued availability of CCS and J1772 connectors. There's none. There's none. Unless you plan to build a car with the old connector on it, you got VinFast. Options for performance-based standards that can reduce the need for future regulatory updates or changes as the technology evolves. Well, it can do a megawatt, so it's going to be a while before we need to address anything fresh with this connector. And that's that megawatt is with an air-cooled vehicle side of the connector. So we can liquid cool the vehicle side to get even more leeway before it's time to change this standard at all. So to be received by April 5th of 2024, so get on it if you want to write something to the government, and hopefully they listen. Then we've got... Why are you on... Oh, because I know why it's over there. It opened all the way over here because I checked... Not checked, but because I sent you guys the link to the document, and so now everything's over here. Stand by. Let's move this. Well, first, let's click over here. Click up here. Close that. Move tab to the Charged EVs window. There we go. So ARM says, sure looks like it exploded. Because News 9, News 9 Sydney has since removed this post. But it said, breaking! Emergency services are on scene at incident at Liverpool Westfield in Sydney's west. It is understood the battery of the BYD electric vehicle on display has exploded while charging, causing the car to reverse through the entrance of a Myer store and into the cosmetics counter. Hashtag 9News. There's so much to unpack with that, but start with, if your battery pack exploded, it no longer has any energy in it to move the car backwards, unless it threw the car backwards, and as we can see, this car is in relatively good shape. It has like minor collision damage from when it went through the wall. See, the charge port is closed, and there's not a cable hanging out of it. Plus, not to mention, if it was charging, there would have been an interlock to prevent it from moving. So, while certain groups are more likely to complain about the lying media, just because they are wrong a lot of the time doesn't mean that they're never right. And in this case here, this was a hit piece by this Australian news channel, and they were so wrong they had to delete it in shame. I don't know that they apologized. ARM says, what do you know? News 9 Sydney has deleted the post. And on top of that, there doesn't appear to be a charging cable hanging out of the port because the door is closed. And it's not like the door closed as it was running through the wall. It's flush, so that means it was never open to begin with. Busted again. Chris Farley. Jim Farley probably appreciated in context there. In bed with the fuel industry. ARM says, no, it's just poor journalism. It's got to be more than just that, though, because there's nothing that looks exploded about that. Tech AU says, this is insanely irresponsible from 9News. As such, I got the actual information. Sad I had to play journalist on a Saturday, and confirmed there was no explosion. Fake news. A BYD did not explode in Sydney Westfield today, as reported by 9News. This afternoon, 9News posted incorrect information about an electric vehicle. I'll have to click on the see more. I was making sure there wasn't more in here. Link to posts and comments are expectedly bad. I don't even want to click into Facebook right now. You guys know what Facebook and EV comments look like. I was hoping it was like their news page, and I was curious what that looks like. But this person says Channel 9, enough said. I'm not familiar with Channel 9. I wouldn't be surprised to see it's a Murdoch piece or a Sinclair. I don't know if Sinclair bought outside the country. Looks like driver error to me. An EV wouldn't be able to move if the battery had exploded, as I said. Break your display. This is like the Jaguar I-Pace that malfunctioned. Now the driver is arrested for dangerous driving. The amount of crap they invent to create fear of EVs. Good news for BYD, it still looks better than a BMW even after exploding. Did they talk to anyone who was there? This person says bloody Teslas. That's exactly how it would go if it was here. Yeah, like if it would have been this far, it wouldn't have been able to roll or look this decent if you consider that it also rolled through half a store. That's true, the cosmetic counter is rarely up front. BYD is getting a cosmetic facelift. Alright, that's funny. They've updated their article, no mention of the car exploding whilst charging. Alright, so we'll check that out after we see what the citizen journalist found us. It will be a write-off, even if it is just cosmetic damage. Yeah, of course. It's a new car for sale. Nobody wants to buy that thing. A 14-year-old boy was just sitting inside. One has to ask why the proximity key was anywhere near the vehicle while it was on display. Well, because it didn't, my friend. Looks like a 14-year-old lad was pressed the accelerator whilst it was on and slammed through the shop. Your procedure should be to plug the car in, because if you have it plugged in, it can't drive. So even if it was on and he was pushing all the buttons, it wouldn't be able to shift into gear. All right, so let's look at what the citizen journalist found, and then we'll go back to their website and see. This afternoon, News 9 reported incorrect information. No explosion had occurred while the car was charging, causing it to reverse through the entrance of a Meijer store. Obviously, knowing a little about EVs, this sounded incredibly unlikely, if not impossible, so I decided to investigate. I traced down a phone number for the Meijer store in Liverpool Westfield Shopping Center. I asked them if they could confirm if there was an explosion. As expected, they confirmed there was no explosion. It was sad to see a news organization like 9 News distribute misinformation about any topic, particularly electric vehicles. Their Facebook page has 3.1 million followers, and at the time of the inquiry, the post had more than 1,400 likes and 628 comments. Not surprisingly, many of the commentators had believed the report at face value. I mean, if you don't know that your news organization is full of lies, why would you think that they were giving you fake news? Especially if you don't know anything about EVs. And unfortunately, Australian EV penetration is lower than it should be. So anyway, not surprisingly, many of the commentators had believed the report at face value and just ran with it as an opportunity to bash electric cars. Below are just some of them. Build your dreams, watch them go up in flames. The future is here, fire emoji. Until they sort out stuff like this, I'm staying straight away. I'm staying right away. Watch this space. I see a recall incoming. Sad fire bucket on wheels. So really, just keep unlicensed drivers out of your driver's seat. When you stop for a minute and think critically about the claim that an explosion happened, we know that lithium-ion batteries don't explode, and in rare circumstances, they may catch fire and require a lot of water to extinguish. However, BYD particularly is not a great target for this criticism, having shown the robustness of their blade-style battery, demonstrating a direct puncture and still not resulting in ignition. Plus, even if there was an explosion near the battery might have caught fire, and it was clearly not even scorched. Imagine the worst had happened. How would that initiate the car to reverse is beyond comprehension, particularly as these cars cannot move into drive or reverse while charging, or while charging is taking place, or the charging cable is just connected, not even plugged in, just it's clicked in there, and the other end is just dangling free. It won't go. As is often the case, the story was not true. Good work there. Story of two people. Me thought critically about this investigation. Thought critically about this, investigated, and found out it was false. This guy read the same post and ran with it and made a TikTok. Hello, Moto. She wants me to take her shoes off because we don't wear shoes in the house. Yeah, I don't know who he is. He's just some guy on TikToks.
What? A daddy?
I don't know who he is. He might be a daddy. He might be a daddy. I don't know. Yeah, there's me, but I don't know who this guy is. Yeah. All right. So now let's see what the news agency new post looks like.
A daddy?
No malfunction in electric car that reversed into Meyer storefront. Manufacturer says. The manufacturer says. Why didn't they just say we were wrong? Update. Electric car caused mayhem in Sydney shopping. Why does it still have to be an electric car at this point? Why not just a car? It was thrown through the window by a driver. The shopping center with reports the car suddenly reversed into a Meyer shopfront in Liverpool. 3 people were hurt when a BYD electric car. Like they keep slamming the electric car part. You went down? Bye bye. Anyway, it's like he's sneering electric car. Hydration. So reversed from its display stand, placed on a display stand with the manufacturer saying that there was no electrical fault to blame. A 14-year-old had been sitting in the car on display stand when it suddenly accelerated, hitting a glass panel before it reversed into the Meyer store. Police were told. This news organization is terrible. Where's their editor? So let me get this straight. A 14-year-old sits in the car. There's no malfunction in the car. And the car just rockets in reverse. Car's on. And I don't know if BYD has emulated creep like so many of the other electric cars out there do. But let's assume that it does have a simulated creep. And so that would mean that it was in gear already if he just sat in it. And that is unlikely. So that is clearly an unlabeled quote from the young driver that the car just rocketed backwards. 3 people are believed to have been injured when a BYD car rapidly reversed from its place in the display stand. A witness to the accident told 9 News that loud bangs could be heard before the car became embedded into the makeup counter of the Meyer department store. Like it crashing through the windows? Several loud bangs in succession were heard, with smoke filling the air. Maybe it ran over an electrified display stand? Maybe this tire smoke? I don't know. Clearly, there was nothing on fire with the car. 2 people were injured. Is it 2 or 3? 2 people were injured when the car rapidly reversed. One man in his 50s was treated for minor head injuries, and another man aged in his 30s was treated for chest injuries. They're both taken to Liverpool Hospital in stable condition. Shoppers flocked to the sound of the explosion supplied. So they didn't actually remove the word explosion from their piece. Glass was shattered at the shopping center, falling to the food court several stories below. Glass doesn't work that way either. If you push through the glass, it should be in the shop, not in the food court ahead of the car. I'm sorry, any of our Australians watching this, you can't trust this news organization. They fail at the most basic reporting. I mean, there might be some pieces that could have some physics to end up that way, but the majority of that glass should be inside the store. Unless the food court is no, that doesn't make sense either. Unless the food court is in and underneath the Meyer. Anyway, Police established a crime scene outside the store and are investigating the cause of the crash. Officers spoke to the 14-year-old boy at the scene, and he was allowed to leave with a family member while police continue to investigate. He has not been charged. Safe Work NSW is also investigating the crash. Third person was treated to minor injuries from the falling glass, but was not taken to the hospital. Okay, so maybe the food court is in the building, or not in the building, but in the shop that had the glass front. Car in question is a BYD vehicle, electric vehicle, again, global popular brand, manufactured in China. The manufacturer is quick to temper reports that the car was to blame, with the retail partner managing the Westfield's display site saying there's no failure in the battery and the vehicle is operating normally. But questions remain how the car was able to be operated while parked on the second level display of the shopping center. That part, yeah, that should not have been possible. I suggest you start plugging your cars in when they're on display. But wow, absolutely terrible reporting even after the update. Thanks, News 9. And what's next? Car and driver. So this is a report on a report. Sawyer saw the car and driver update on their Cybertruck. They say we tested the Cybertruck Cyberbeast with its roll top bed cover open and closed at 75 miles per so open and closed at 75 miles per hour, and saw 10% less consumption when it was closed. The closed tonneau adds 25 miles of range at 75 miles per hour. It's also important again at this point to note that the US EPA fuel economy tests are not completed at 75 miles per hour. They go much slower. They might touch 65 miles an hour on the new tests, and the old tests maxed at 55 miles an hour. So, if you drive at 75 miles an hour, you'll never see the EPA range on your cars. Yeah, less drag makes sense. What's inside this is a useful test. Great idea by them. I don't know if that's sarcasm or legit. It's like I hear some say that a few months back, was it at the event? Uh, yeah, it's been all over the place. Dr. Electron says, yeah, something else was expected. I think they just needed to write something, so they confirmed that the Tesla was not lying about physics, and gave you the how much it was changed by, perhaps. So let me get back over here and click on this. So that was a fun show this week, and I want to thank all of you guys for your time, and I want to thank our channel members for their monetary contributions, and we'll catch you on the flip side. See you tomorrow on the Tesla Life Express, Wednesday on the Tesla Life Show, Friday on the Tesla Life Express, and then back here again, this time 1:10 p.m. Eastern on Sunday for more of our randomness. And with that, we'll catch you soon.